All right, let's start with this. What's going on in the market? With the market changes, what is your biggest objection that you have right now out there? Seth.
I mean, I teach a 2-hour negotiation class very often, so this is tough for me to sort of whittle it down to a couple things. But in any market, it's about tapping into motivation, understanding what is important to people, and then connecting to that in order to help them achieve their goals. It's understanding the motivation of the person on the other side of the transaction to see how far you can push or how little opportunity you have to push. Obviously, interest rates are a huge concern. I hate the word objections because objections make me think of a tennis racket just hitting away people's concerns. I want to speak to people's concerns. So people's concern is interest rates. We're talking about opportunity that exists right now. You're going to pay more in your interest rate, but if you pay $2,000 more a month for 12 months, that's $24,000. But when everybody floods in and you see $100,000 appreciation, that's net $76,000. So the concern is always dollars and cents. How can we talk to that concern, not bat it away? Same thing with commission. I heard it today and I hear it all the time. My service, my value is worth X. Guess what? They don't care about you. Eventually they will. First they have to trust you, then they like you, then they love you enough to refer you business. But at first, it's their motivation that's important. So I talk about you're only a shiny object on the market once. You want to come out of the gate with no chinks on your armor. When the dust settles at the end of the transaction, it matters what's in your pocket. By putting a competitive commission on this, you are going to attract more people. More attraction leads to better results. It's about understanding what's important to them and removing negatives. Price reduction conversation we're having instantaneously. We're putting it in our listing agreements. We're taking the negatives away before they can even be used against us.
I think it's important to really be hyper specific. Every price point, every market moves differently. And it's interesting because I also am, a quarter of a mile away from probably where Seth is, right? However, I'm from New Jersey, which I constantly have to overcome with New York City. I'm just getting it out there. The New York agents hang up on me when I call. Yeah. So they're doing 8 rentals, but they hang up on me and they have a tighter suit than I do. So it's very, whatever. I'm a New Yorker, so I can say all this terrible shit. But I think, right, in my market, because 80% of my client base works in finance. So the agent dealing with them has to be able to work with a D, right? Just the facts. And they're generally small and they know more than you. So if you don't have that conversation and you can't bring value, they're not talking to you, they're not working with you, right? People work with people they like, know, and trust. In a lot of the parts of the country, if you are buying a $500,000 home, you're just happy to get a house. You're grateful, right? In our market, if you're buying a $500,000 home, it's a studio and it's a shithole, but you're a spreadsheet guy who knows more, right? So know who you're speaking to and make sure that the conversation that you're having matches, right? Like matching and mirroring is super, super important. And like it's how you do it better, right? It's just like me. Be bold, be brief, be gone. That's what my disc says, right? Just the facts. When I send an email, I have to go back and say, hope all is well, and thank you very much, instead of fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, right? So it's however, right? I will take my agents, because I'll show up with them on an appointment to help them. I have a listing team. I'm trying to level them up. And we'll go somewhere where there's a seller who's painted everything purple and has a lot of plastic flowers and a cat. and who wants to talk about rainbows and butterflies, and I have learned to count backwards in my head and control myself and speak slowly and say nice things. And that's why, right, like, I forgot the question, but what was the question? Yeah, none of us remember the question. Oh, overcome, right? Number one thing that my agents are trying to overcome is we decided to put our search on hold. And I will sit, right? So I move I work at a standing desk. And I will periodically throw my desk in the center of the floor where they all are, right? Just so I can see what's going on. And I will hear them banging out phone calls, and they, you know, the other side says, we've decided to put our search on hold, and they say, okay, great, and they hang up. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, right? So getting them, right, how do you stop that from happening? What's that conversation look like? And I like getting them to understand that you have to know the script. Like, that sounds terrible. Every single thing that I say doesn't sound like a script because it's my conversation, but it started out 20 years ago with memorizing all of that and then eventually ingesting it so that, you know, it's different, right? If I'm speaking to a buyer, it's very different than what I'm saying to a seller. I need to know how to segue back and forth so I don't, you know, bury myself. At the same time, right, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Don't sell something that's going to blow up in your face, and like, people remember that. People respect you and come back to you if you tell them the negatives, right? When you go out with somebody and they immediately tell you, don't buy this, it smells like mold, right? They trust you. Whatever that looks like, I think that's important in this market, and I'm gonna let you talk now.
Okay, so just like the book went out of my head, after listening to the two of you talk about all of these challenges, I thought, you know what? You guys are right. It's about, you know, I want to, you know, not put my search on hold or whatever the problem is, isn't really the problem. The problem is the underlying why and how we can manage to get those clients, those people that we're trying to serve, to actually get back to where they were when they started, to the why they wanted to buy the house to begin with, to get them to think a little bit about, you know, when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And in the decision-making process right now, whether it's low inventory, whether it's high interest rates, whatever it is how long are you going to put your life on hold? And so for me, I am a little bit of I also write the whole email and then I have to go back and say, dear so-and-so, because, you know, I'm so quick and direct. But when I actually, you know, take the moment to breathe and think, put myself in their shoes and understand what they're looking to accomplish, whether it be with my team and or with my clients, I think that's when I'm able to serve them best. And ditto to everything they said. And by the way, the book is raving fans.
Wait, I think that we all have a common thing, right? We're listening, right? We have empathy, right? The reason when I work with somebody, I look you in the eye and I tell you I'm going to do that for you, and you know that I mean it because I'm telling you the truth. It is impossible to beat that. And I'm listening. I am asking you, so why did you begin looking in the first place? What was that? What did that look like for you? And they're going to tell me, because everybody wants to tell you their shit, right? Whatever that is. I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to listen. And then when they tell me, I'm going to drag that out of them, and I'm going to find out all of those things. And I'm going to say, you know, so you're both living there, working from home. How's that on your relationship?
With your parents.
I'm going to get it right until they tell me, and then I'm going to bring it home with so if I could find you something that was a good deal, right? and we could negotiate it, when you were just in a market where the only way you were negotiating was overpaying, would you start that search again? What would that be like, not having to, have 2 desks in there and whatever the hell is going on in your life? What you have to, if you get to motivation, right, which you talked about, that's how you make a relationship sticky. And that's the problem that I think that we don't do, right? You want to not be the realtor. You want them to know that you have their back, you heard them, and you're not just trying to get paid. I don't give a fuck if you pay me. That's what I'm saying, right? I'm saying, I'm with you. Don't buy this house. Don't buy that house. I will stay with you forever, even though I'm only ever going to show you 2 or 3 houses, right? Because I listened. I literally have explained, and I think this is a tip for new agents. If you take somebody out and you show them property, you show them not 1, right? If you're smart, you're taking them at least 3, maybe 5 properties. When you trap them in your car, also very important, get them in the car, they can't get away, and then tell them, we're gonna look at these 5 properties. When we leave, I'm gonna ask you, did you like this better or worse than the one before? And the reason is because today, at the end of today, we're going to end up with your top 3 properties. Now, I listened and I paid attention, and tomorrow I'm going to take you out and I'm going to pick the 5 properties, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing, top 3. Now, right, I knew what you liked, even though you told me a totally different story. I found out that you have more money and you were lying about your price point. And then I found the property and I asked you, do you want to buy this property? That's the other thing, right? I'm not a tour guide. So.
Go ahead.
I mean, what Jill said boils down to listen more than you talk. Real estate agents love to talk.
That's hard for me, you can tell.
I was going to say.
Same here. And I could talk about negotiation for the next 20 hours, and I'm going to really try not to. You guys will thank me for not doing it. But we're trying to extract information, both from our clients and from the other side. I have had so many best and finals with 1 person. I have a $1.95 million listing right now that we have a signed contract today at 2.1. The same apartment just sold for 1.9. I knew we had a market of 1 because I listened. I asked questions. I didn't point out the kitchen. So I knew that this was the only property that made sense for this person. So because of the level of interest, we're going to best and final. The level of interest is you because you put your cards on the table. My job is to withhold the cards of my client. My job is to ask questions and learn about my potential client. It's not to tell them. It's not to beat them over the head. But it's also not being passive. It's not saying, do you think? It's saying, we need to, right? So the words that you choose talk to you being an expert or a participant. You want to be the expert. And one of the things that I'm having conversations with my clients to remove negatives, to set expectations, to lead breadcrumbs for them to make the right decisions for themselves is that asking price is marketing. We're in a bifurcated market where some things are selling above ask, some things are stagnating and need 10% price reductions to trade on the same block. So we need to drill down, find value of a specific property, and negotiate based on value, not on asking price. We also, it's hugely important to be a data person. I have a cheat sheet when I have a first conversation with a buyer or a seller, and I have 12 boxes, month over month, year over year, for 12 different data points that they can't find online. Talk to them in a language that they can't just easily Google, and you'll be the expert, you'll be the person they lean on, and remember, negotiation starts at first contact.
Unless they wear purple. Don't give them data, because they don't want data.
True. But my clients tend to be the Ds, the finance people. But I would also say we're storytellers. We don't tell people what to do. Nobody wants to be in the dumb camp, so tell them what smart people do. Nobody wants to be told you need to stage. Tell them the story about the guy who invested $10,000 and got a 25% return. 1.7 versus 1.35. Tell the story of how that guy was going to use the building expert who told him 1.4. I got 1.75 because he understood, not because I said it, he understood that the building expert, the local expert, is just tied to the recent comp there, doesn't understand the context of the entirety of the market. You want a market expert who can contextualize this home to the entirety of the market. Remember, you're not disparaging that person. You're telling a story about why you'd be an idiot to use that person. But without saying you'd be an
But
idiot.
in a nice way.
In a storytelling
The
way.
nicest possible way.
Negotiation is storytelling. Curate the information that best fits the story that you're trying to tell, and use the story as breadcrumbs to help them make the best decision for themselves instead of you making it for them, because they're going to push back if you say you need to stage. What do you mean? My paint, But you can tell a story about how white paint yielded an extra 15%.
Or right, storytelling, and to take up, I think that it's incredibly important. When I want somebody to price accordingly, I tell them I never sell my own homes. I have my group come, and they come in, and invariably they make me give away all my furniture and paint my house, right? And then we sit down to talk about price, and they tell me what they think, and I'm like, my house is nicer than that, so of course it's my house, I price it. So then I sit on the market for 30 days, and my overpriced business coach tells me, you're an idiot. You hired those fucking team of professionals, but you didn't listen to them. And, right, I go to their price. Immediately, I have 3 offers. I get the price I wanted. I should have listened to them in the first place, right? So you give them the story. They can relate to that, and then they,
The decision themselves.
So wait, this is the story you're talking about is on your own home?
I have a story for everything, right?
It's called a cautionary tale.
Yeah, and it works. That works. It makes them make their own decision. We're just holding their hand along the way.
I love how this is going. This is great.
This is like, we need some bourbon. I'm only kidding.
We'll get there at 4 o'clock. We'll get there at 4 o'clock. We'll get there at 4
That would be surprising
You
delight.
guys cover quite a bit. So you guys already kind of talk about interest rate a little bit. You talk about how to have a story for, have someone listing a house. Let's go to the next thing. That's another big question is that, when you go to listing appointment, which actually Jared mentioned a little bit, but I want to hear from you guys as the agent, that, hey, you know what, so-and-so can do it for less on my commission. What would you do for me? Can you match it? How would you respond to that?
Again, I don't make it about me. It's not that I'm going to give you this level of service that's worth 6 or 4. Of course I'm going to talk about the level of service. I'm going to talk about the track record. I'm going to tell stories of other people's success. But with commission, it's tying it to their motivation. When the dust settles, what's going to be left in your pocket? And this is a way to help you get the most competition in the shortest period of time, which leads to the most money. You're not putting this money under your bed. You're using it for something else. Let's maximize this asset in order to help you maximize the next move. And commission is the best piece of marketing that you can offer to the brokerage community. I don't look at commission, honestly, when I sell a property or bring a buyer, but I do, $100 million worth of business a year. The agent who's doing one, two deals a year, it might not even be inherent bias. They might just be drawn to that property that has the 3%. Why don't we take that agent and bring them into your camp? Because we want every agent.
Go ahead.
So I loved what Jared said earlier. And the one thing that has been really true for me in recent years in my business is I think back on scripts that, used to feel foreign to me. And now when I actually use those words, they just kind of come out of my mouth and I say, not necessarily exactly you get what you pay for, but in essence, that's what I'm saying. I am saying that I'm going to protect your asset the same way I protect my interest in this commission. I loved exactly the way he worded it. But I find that when I'm just having that natural conversation and the script just comes out of my mouth like it's part of me, that is what is really effective with my clients. It's not a script anymore. So I loved your comment about, 20 years ago when you were studying scripts, it doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago, it doesn't matter if it was yesterday. So if you're newer and those scripts feel uncomfortable, just keep saying them, and then they're not scripts anymore. They're your words. And whether you say, you get what you pay for, or whether you say that, I know my value, I know your home's value, I'm going to protect your home's value, like Jared said earlier, as long as they believe you, then you're going to be effective with whatever it is, the commission, question, or challenge, et cetera.
So I have a listing team, right, and we spend a lot of time training them to level up their skills. Honestly, when somebody brings up that commission conversation, we kick it to the end as much as possible, right? Why don't you let me tell you what it is that we do, and then at the end we can certainly discuss commission. The fact is that we actually raised our commission this year. So everybody lowered theirs, I raised mine 0.5%. And when people talk about commission, I explain. If you want to hire somebody that's going to take your listing for less, I will give you 3 names. I'm not a discount broker, and I'm never going to be a discount broker. I will get you significantly more money, right? Because we're full service. We know you guys are busy. We're going to do everything exactly the way, from start to finish, the way it's supposed to be done, right? So that when we have a conversation at the end, it can only ever be about price. I'm a marketer. My job is to drive traffic through your listing. So, we have somebody who specializes in each area of the transaction, right? You told me I was, that you're also interviewing blank, and I love them. They're a great agent. They sell my listings, right? However, right, you want somebody who negotiates for a living, and that is what I do, and I do it at a high level, way better. All I need is one shitty offer, right? And I can negotiate that into something that is, it's... If you say that, and I swear in any way, and you look the people deep in the eyes with trust, people believe you. And you can show it with your data. Because then, right, go and pull what, always ask on the phone when you make the appointment, do you mind letting me know, right? Right, are you interviewing other agents? We ask, right? If you are, and then I acknowledge it, right? It's smart, right? I fired my first realtor. So that, right, now I know, and then I always say, so can you tell me who it is? If there's any pushback whatsoever, I'm like, no problem. How about the company, right? Just so I know, right, so I can be prepared to show you what it is that we do differently. 9 out of 10 times they tell me who the realtor is. I can go and I can print out, right, whatever it is. This guy sold 24 houses. Yeah, he's a great agent, right? That was, whatever that is, and I never, ever say anything not nice. I always come from being nice about them because that matters. I want people to show my listings, and just like you said, right, traffic is how you get the most money.
And your greatest asset is your relationships within the industry, 100%. Can I just say one thing that I think is something everybody should write down? Pricing is obviously a huge conversation piece. It's what's most important to people. Again, pricing is marketing. We'll talk about that. And there's different pricing strategies based on what type of market we're in. However, markets are dynamic, so pricing has to remain fluid. Markets are dynamic, so pricing has to remain fluid. I can give you a range today, but we cannot lock down a price until the day we list because it can get counterfeited. It can also get benefited. So we need to keep a certain amount of fluidity in our pricing strategy so that when we hit the market, we're hitting it optimally.
Absolutely, I do that every single time I put a listing on, especially because I'm usually working with people for a week. They'll sign, but then we're working together for a week or two to make sure we get it staged properly, to make sure everything else is lined up. So things change, and I
So
agree.
let's shift
And if you throw in this is a partnership, ooh, look out, Simon.
That's good.
This is a partnership, right? We're in this together, and I'm going to be there next to you, right? I'm happy to hear what you think, and this is what I think. And ultimately, right, if you want to give it, when we get to that point, a chance at what you think for 10 days, like, I could do that. Like, yeah, build it in the contract. I'm going to write down what I think, right? Because ultimately, I am a business person, and if we're this far apart, you should list with that other agent. I'll be your third realtor.
All right, let's shift to the next question, last one. For buyers, for your team or your agent, whoever is working with buyers, they put a couple offers in and they're not winning it. What do you say to them, how to make them be that number one and get that offer accepted?
I mean, because it's such a segmented market, there are New York City neighborhoods and property types that are super competitive. Had a empty nester moving to be closer to her grandchildren, targeting a 3-bedroom in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Super competitive segment of the market. She lost out on a couple things, even though she went above ask, because we identify before we go into a best and final what the value that we actually think the property is. We don't care, we don't give a shit about the asking price. We are trying to ascribe a value to the property. Then step 2 is, how long are you going to be in that property? She said for 20 years. So we think I'm going to use arbitrary numbers here. We think the value of the property is 1.325. It's asking 125. However, you're going to be here for 20 years. 4% appreciation per year is going to be $800,000 in 20 years. How much of that future equity are you willing to trade to get the property that you want today? We went up to 138. She won the property. She overspent by $55,000, but what she did was she created $735,000 or $745,000 worth of future equity instead of $800. That was something she could live with. So what are you willing to trade in order to get this? Same thing with the interest rate conversation. Yeah, you're spending $2,000 more today per month, but when everybody comes racing in, you're net $74,000 ahead.
I'm going to say something, right, because I spend a lot of time coaching and training my team. So he should work with me, right, because that's a finance script. If you use that script on anyone other than a finance dude, he lost you on the third fucking word.
She was a teacher.
So yeah, like literally small words, right? And hyper specific to the market you're dealing with. You have to you're in their head. You got to use their language and however they communicate. So that's the skill of sales, right? Like, it's why I have a hard time with a lot of young agents that come. I can't let them loose on the finance guys because they're not ready to have that conversation. But, right, we're all from different places here. So, you also can take it in a different direction when talking about that, because I think I've dumbed it down because most of my agents are not able to have that conversation. And, we break it down like this. You're in a rental. So, how long have you been renting? What are you paying? Blah, 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 blah. It's super easy to buy, easier than it is to rent, right? And if I bought when I was your age, how old are you, 27? 25. If I bought when I was 25 years old, I wouldn't be sitting here selling houses. I'd be sitting on a beach, right? Because at a certain point, try to meet them and make it easy. You need what he says at the high price point, and I get all those people. But the average person, if you're too smart, they are not going to get you. And he negotiates for a living, so I'm not picking on you, I swear to you.
And I'm in Manhattan.
And he, oh my God, and he's in New York.
People are pretty smart.
Yes, so all of his conversations are with those, and that's what they want to hear about. Some people.
Don't you think, though, that, I think it was said earlier, people attract like people. So Seth probably gets clients that speak that language more than maybe you or I do, and vice versa for other things. So I think, having the conversation to the level that you can have it without sounding like you're making it up is really important. For me, I'm fortunate that I work in New York and Connecticut. So Connecticut tax.
You get both.
Connecticut taxes are a lot lower and can, at a price point of maybe $2 million, I can find something so much nicer in one of those towns than I might be able to find in Bronxville. They're just not finding what they want. We get outbid. Larchmont, it's like, we're going way, way over the price marker because it's not the price tag, right?
None of us talked about relationships, right?
Well,
You
that's
asked
what I'm
about
saying.
making
You have
deals.
to, now, when you get to know them,
It's
know
the
how to
other
get them.
agent. That's the other piece there, right? If you have great relationships with the other agents,
with the other
my
agent, yeah.
agents, they don't lose. Because I pick up the phone and I call myself and I say, hey, you got 5 offers, you have over asking, what's it gonna take so that I can win, right? And we list 10 things a week, they wanna sell my houses, so they help me. And then I do every possible thing, depending, and every market's different. Are you taking an escalation clause? Can I tack whatever on top of it? Can you call me 5 minutes after you get all the offers and tell me where I should be? Can you, whatever that looks like, I'm representing at that point the buyer, and I'm trying to make their deal. And then, what's important to the seller? Do they want a free rent back afterwards? Would they like to live there for another year, right? For free. Right? How can I make this happen? That's important.
I call it conspiratorial consensus. I'm trying to be conspiratorial with all the agents, leverage my relationships with them. Just had something I listed in Chelsea, get multiple offers first day. One was cash. I'm trying to say to the cash buyer, because I don't know if the appraisals are coming for the other people, we're gonna give you an opportunity before going to best and final to give me a strong offer, and potentially my seller will take it, and we won't do the best and final. We're asking. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Absolutely.
That's important.
Yeah, trying, when you have several offers or more than several, and your cash offer isn't the best, getting them to be that is important. And I agree with you, relationships with other agents, so important. But there's always the situation, we had a situation in Larchmont as well, where they did a rent back for free for 6 months because that's what was important to the seller. But there is occasions where, I have a buyer who has great budget, but he just cannot compete with the, $200,000-300,000 cash offers over asking on the homes that he's looking at. So when that's the case, we kind of look at other options, where can you beat out somebody and where does it still match what you really want? So we look at some other options as well to try to get them into a house that they're going to love, where they can win.
Wow, we can continue talking about this all day long in negotiation, but we won't. But thank you so much. We got to go to the next panel. Thank you.